What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of Tunji's podcast. I'm your host, Tunji Taylor Lewis. Today's sponsor for this podcast is once again my girlfriend, Shadea Wele, who is allowing me to record this podcast in her humble abode. You can see the lighting, you can see the warm lighting, and we can't see everything because you're looking at me. But shout out to my girl for once again allowing me to record this at her place. I'm recording this today on Sunday, June 16th. Babe? June 16th? June 16th, Father's Day. Father's Day. I called my dad today. Wished him a happy Father's Day. Got to chatting with him. And I made sure to do that before posting on Instagram. I think that, even though I'm a full-on millennial and obviously I take social media very seriously, that, sometimes it's good to make sure you get things done, in real life before you, let everybody in the world see what's going on in your life. Love my dad. He's obviously one of the most important people in my life. He's my role model. He's my hero. I look to him. I look to my dad. Obviously I have a lot of comedic influences, as those of you who follow me on social media might have picked up on. But as far as who I look to be a good person, to look for to be a good man, just like all the things having to do with manhood and all the things that entails. I definitely look to my dad and look at how he would deal with situations and use that as sort of a compass to, sort of guide the things I do. My mom is the person who taught me a lot of things, taught me with her words, treat others the way you want to be treated. All those good philosophies that I carry through my life today. But my dad is the guy who I just looked at, he was always present in our lives, came back from work, every day at 6 o'clock he'd come in. We were always excited to see him when we were kids. To his day, just seeing how hard he works, just seeing how he continues to put in his trust and hope and faith in God at all times, and how he continues to love his wife and his children. There's no better example of that for me than my dad. So happy Father's Day, Dad, once again. And I guess upon thinking about Father's Day, I was just sort of thinking about, naturally thinking about my childhood and my life, and it's just sort of my story up to this point. And I guess that's what's going to be the brunt of this episode today, is just sharing just a little bit of my life and my background, and how I came to be where I'm at currently. And also, before I get into that, the response to the last episode was amazing. The clip that I posted about Instagram about some of my frustrations about pursuing my life as an actor. The response was incredible, especially on Instagram, just because I very quickly found out that I wasn't the only one, and there were a bunch of artists out there, singers, poets, other actors, other people pursuing their life goals and all that stuff, could relate very much to the stuff that I was saying. And I really, once again, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but I love this podcast format because this is just a great way for number one, you guys get to actually hear my voice, because usually I'm doing lip sync videos on Instagram, but it's also just a great way for me just to get my thoughts out and to just talk my shit, and not worry about editing or making sure it's perfect or anything like that. So just sort of my life story. I've lived my whole life out here in British Columbia, out here in the Vancouver area. I was born in a city called Burnaby. I was born in Burnaby, BC, at Burnaby Hospital, which, fun fact, is where me and all three of my siblings were all born. I'm the first of four. It goes me, my brother Adeyemi, and then my baby brother Simi, and then my baby sister BC. So it's 3 boys, 1 girl. I'm the oldest boy. I grew up, most of my life. I was a pretty shy kid. So, it's funny too because a lot of people who watch me grow up as a kid are always shocked to find out that I'm an entertainer and I love the stage and I love being goofy in front of the screen because I was a pretty quiet kid, pretty shy. In hard contrast to my brother Adeyemi, my younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, he was the extrovert. He was like the life of the party type of dude, and I was like a little bit always a little bit more quiet. But I was the kid who like when you got me at home, like I was a little bit more active and a little bit more like goofy, and but like you put me around people that don't know, and I got pretty silent. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to become more comfortable with that and not try to be goofy, just to like to hide the fact that people might find me like off-putting or quiet or anything like that. So sometimes you might find me having a quiet moment, but in environments where I'm comfortable, I can be a bit more goofy. So yeah, I grew up a really shy kid, but one thing about me was that I always felt comfortable on the stage. Um, and it's not really something I can explain. Like I can remember like doing like school plays, and at West Coast Christian School, which was in Vancouver at the time, I believe. I was going out to school in Vancouver Elementary School, and we do these school plays, and I just love the stage, man. You put me out there, and I would just light up, and these are things that you realize that I realized that were in me like the whole time I was in there. Sorry, that wasn't even a sentence. Let me try to say that again. These are things that looking back you realize that I always had within me, but like at the time you just like think it's just something you enjoy. You're just having fun, not realizing that that's your calling, that's your gift. But I didn't know that I wanted to become an actor my whole life. I grew up most of my life thinking that I wanted to be an athlete. I loved basketball. I loved track and field. I kind of liked soccer. I didn't like soccer as much because soccer, required a lot of running and a lot of endurance, which has never been my strong suit. I've never been good at like running for long distance of time. I've always been good at, short sprints or things that require strength or power. Those were sort of my areas of strength. And so, my sports life, I played soccer for like from when I was about, I'd say like 6 until I was about 11 years old. And then what happened was I saw that my brother Adeyemi was having success in track and field. Like he got into track before I did. Oh, wait, no. So scratch that. So I stopped doing soccer at around 10 years old, and then when I was 10 until I was about 11, I was playing spring basketball. So I was sort of like trying out that dream, seeing like if I could become like the next Kobe Bryant or something like that. But then I saw my brother trying out track and field, and he was having a lot of success in that. So I looked at him and I was just like, like like maybe I could try that out. And so the next year I signed up for track, and because I was like this overgrown kid who hit puberty earlier than most kids my age, I did really well. I did really well initially, and that I can remember that being just sort of the first time where I felt like people admired me for something, because for most of my life up to that point, especially at school, like I kind of felt like I was sort of, always like the fourth wheel or the fifth wheel, never really included in any group, and like which is the experience of like a lot of kids who grow up black in a mostly white environment. You end up being different from most of the kids. Your outlook is different, your attitude is different, and your skin looks different too. So I dealt with like I dealt with I didn't deal with any like bullying per se, like nothing that was traumatizing, but like I definitely did deal with like a lot of like a lot of passive behaviors, and sometimes like over behaviors that kind of like let me know that I wasn't really like included in the group and stuff like that. And so when I hit track and like I was getting like first place awards and first place trophies and stuff like that was like a really big great feeling of validation for me. And my first year of track went pretty well, and then my second year was like probably the year of like the most success. Like I got into this competition called the BC Summer Games, and I was like one of the top two like sprinters in BC, and like it was basically a lot of it had to do with like my natural talent because again, they made us train and like running for long distances. I wasn't good at that stuff. But just because of like my natural build and my natural power that I had, I was able to have like a lot of success. So that was in 2008 when things were starting to like, really, really look up as far as me being a track athlete. However, so yeah, so let me see. Let me try to remember this timeline. So I go into the next year, 2009, like, primed to, it was really my goal to be like one of the fastest sprinters in Canada for my age group, right? At the same time, in 2009, I got into high school. So for those of you out there, in where I live, high school goes from grade 9 to grade 12. I know some people have gone from grade 8 to grade 12, but for me, it was grade 9 to grade 12, 4 years of high school. Um, I get in there, and, track is definitely my focus. But I also joined no, oh man. Am I messing this up? Let me see. Grade 9, I wasn't in drama class yet. I joined drama the next year. Okay, so this is what happened. So in 2009, I'm primed to be, one of the fastest sprinters in Canada that year. But I have a bad year because I hurt myself. Like I hurt my knee. And, I didn't have the best year that year, but like, I was still optimistic. And, one of the problems of being somebody who gets success off of mostly natural talent is that you feel like you don't really have to work that hard to like gain success. Like once I got hurt, I wasn't really worried about it. I kind of just figured out, like it'll pass. And, like when I'm ready to come back, I'll just come back. I'll take as much time off as I need, all that good stuff. So, my 2009 year, I really don't remember that well because I feel like it was just like riddled with injuries and stuff like that. And like going into 2010, um, that's when I was starting to feel a little bit better. So I just figured, okay, you know what, like, I'll be back, and I'm ready to go. And what ended up happening instead was like that whole year that I basically took off or wasn't really active in training, the kids who I used to beat their behind easily in the 2008 days when I was really, really good had now surpassed me because they had spent that whole year training and growing. So now I no longer had the advantage of having a sooner, puberty sprout than they did. Now they had fully caught up to me, and they also had a full year of training. And that was definitely that was definitely a big hit on my self-confidence. But luckily, also in that year 2010 is when I joined my first drama class at Terry Fox Secondary School with Mr. Dan Tilsley. And you know what, man? Once again, it was like a classic example of like I went in there, didn't really know anybody, wasn't really comfortable with it. But the moment, they started playing a few improv games, they played this game called Freeze, where like, there's people up there acting like an improv scene and anybody can yell freeze. The people on stage have to freeze in place, and then the person who yelled freeze has to go and tag a person out and then like adopt their, physical position and start a brand new scene. And I can remember it like, like it was yesterday. I got in there, first day of class, didn't know anybody. By all accounts, I should have been shy and more reserved. But like the moment I saw the game, I was like freeze, and I just like went in there and just wanted to try it, right? And that year, like doing the drama classes and stuff, the drama teacher like let us know that there was a musical going on. The musical at that time was The Wedding Singer. The Wedding Singer. And I went out for the audition, sang as best as I could. It was a singing audition, so you just do the song. I think I sang an R. Kelly song. Which R. Kelly song was it? Like I Am Your Angel or something like that. With the song that he did with Celine Dion, I did an R. Kelly song, sang that, and it got me a role It got me a role in the show. I believe The Wedding Singer is a musical that was set in the 80s. So like I got to play like the a Mr. T impersonator, which is, obviously I'm gonna get that role because like I'm the only black dude in the entire class, so I gotta get that role. So that was my first time, playing with impressions and all that stuff. And I can just remember just becoming like so immersed and so uh, enamored with the world of theater that once again that year I wasn't taking track as seriously as I could because I just kind of like had that attitude of like it's always gonna be there, and so I wasn't training as much as I could because like I was just so obsessed with like the process of putting on a good theater show. And I wasn't even one of like the lead actors. I was like one of the background people, one of the ensemble in the back, but like I went to every rehearsal, even the rehearsals I didn't have to be at. I was there like hanging up posters and like campaigning and like trying to bring people out to the show and telling all my track buddies like, hey, like I'm part of this music. I want you guys to all be there, and they all showed up. Like I remember just like really, really being like passionate and like just having so much fun doing it. And once we were at the end of the run of the musicals, like we did about 6 shows. At the end of the 6 shows, I was like bawling my eyes out. Like I was just like so. I can remember that I was crying like my eyes out. And I'm not a crier like that, I'm not usually a crier about a lot of things, but like I was just like so it was so bittersweet that that run was over because I guess, man, I just never felt that level of joy and happiness. I guess I was just like really, really sad that it was over. And before the end of that show, so like before every show we had a moment where every person in the cast just sort of said a few words, said a few words like before we get on stage. And like the thing that I said was just like, I want to thank all you guys, everybody in the casting crew, for giving me the opportunity that I love to do most, which is perform. And when I said that, that kind of shocked me that that came out of my mouth because I was just like, oh, like, but I thought I was super committed to track. I thought I was super committed to like making it to the Olympics and like beating the world records and, like being being the youngest person to ever get the gold medal in the Olympics. I've always been a very, very ambitious person. So like when it came to track, like I had like really, really high ambitions and expectations. But my problem was just like my work ethic probably didn't like match up with my ambitions. But again, like you're young, you feel like you got the talent, you feel like that's all you need. It doesn't really occur to you that work ethic is really the most important thing to getting you there. But anyway, so the musical ends, and because I was so focused on musicals and theater instead of track that year, like once again going into the next year, like I didn't have a great year. Like basically like for the next like for 5 years after I got hit with an injury, like my track career just like did not go well. It was very stagnant. I wasn't like progressing the way that I needed to. And theater and improv was just always my escape. It was just always my escape from like the problems I was having with track or the frustrations I was having with school. Like, theater, as I said to you guys before, like, in my elementary and middle school days, I didn't really feel like I have a place of belonging, but like theater and improv and like the other theater kids just like really, really gave me a sense of like belonging. Like I felt like I belonged there. And it was also really cool for me to experience and like interact with people who had different ideologies about life than I did, because like I grew up in like a Christian environment, grew up around a lot of African Christian people, and I grew up around a lot of people who like thought the same way and grew up in the same environments that I did. But it was really cool to just be around people who just, they were who they were, and they were like really open about their flaws, and they were just themselves, and they were just able to express themselves. And that's why I love the place. And that's why, because like I just felt like I was in an environment where I didn't have to be shy, where I didn't have to be closed off, that I could be like my just weird self and just express myself in any way I wanted to, and it was in an environment where it would be accepted. So going into university, that was one of the things that actually made me pick Trinity Western University as the school that I would go to, was the fact that they had a good track program, but also that there was an improv show that I could potentially audition for and try out for. So I did. I went into Trinity Western. I was part of the track team there. For whatever reason, the coach there thought I had potential and thought he could fix me up to like get back to my glory days in track and field. And I spent most of my day training and all that stuff. But like once again, man, the improv show, like looking back on all of my school experiences, like being in the theater, being around improv were like my best times being at school. And the thing about the school that I was at, it was a small Christian school, and I was really, really good at improv by that point because I'd been training for 3 years at my high school, doing improv, on the side. Like when we weren't doing musicals, we were basically doing improv. So, I came into the to university already really skilled at improv comedy, and I get in there and I basically become like this, you know, overnight celebrity on campus. And you know, it was my first time ever experiencing like having people come up to me and saying, "Hey, Tunji, how's it going?" And I had no idea who they were. Being treated like a high profile, being treated like a popular person. Like I'd never ever been popular at that point. And going through that, like, for like 3 or 4 years really, really taught me the importance of like having like real humility and being humble. Because like one thing I struggled with in track and in my success in being a funny improv and theater guy was just like whenever I came upon success, I became like pretty arrogant. I became like pretty cocky about it, and I really really wanted to like put it in people's face that I was this important person. And that was just from insecurity. That was just from insecurity, from like feeling like you're not included, feeling like you're not being seen, feeling like you're not important. And like the moment somebody gives you attention, the moment somebody treats you like you're a popular person, you don't really, I guess you just don't really believe it, right? You don't really believe that this is actually how people see you, and you're not secure in who you are yet. So like you kind of like just put all your you kind of just like put all your faith and just put all your confidence in whether or not a show did well or whether or not you ran fast that day, right? And so that was definitely something that I had to go through in my years at university, was just like learning that, look, man, it doesn't matter like how hard the people laughed at you. It doesn't matter like whether you got this award in track. It doesn't matter whether you ran this time or not. Like you're special because you've been created by the man above. You have people around you who love you. You have people like your dad, your mom, your siblings, friends that you've had like your whole life. Like you have these people around you. And so, that really, really started me on the process of having confidence in myself. What's that? Okay, no problem. It just it just really started me on the process of just like having real security and having real confidence in who I was as a person. And so that really, really got me to get my prayer life up, my spiritual life up, and really just start depending on God to fulfill me and to fill me up and to make me feel that I was like worthy of worthy of greatness and worthy of being loved, rather than relying on what I did in track and field or what I did in theater and stuff like that. So I graduate. I've already had my mind set on becoming I'm still ambitious though, so I still had my mind set on being like this all-time great actor. I had joined this theater company in Vancouver, Granville Island, called Vancouver Theater Sports. I was part of their rookie league, their improv group, their rookie improv group. That's the developmental league, so to speak, that prepares you for like the big times, like the main stage, the main stage in that theater. And so I was part of that. And then unexpectedly my parents decided that they wanted to move out to the East Coast. So I'm living here in Vancouver, British Columbia. My parents wanted to live in a city near Toronto, Ontario. Congratulations to the Raptors. Um, and that was really shocking for me. And at that point, I had a decision to make because I had gotten an agent out here in Vancouver. I was part of an improv group out here in Vancouver, and so I could decide to like go with my parents, after being a newly graduated dude, and like go out there with them, or I could just sort of like step out on my own and try to pursue, this goal that I'd had for a long time after finally quitting. Oh, I didn't even say that part. So I stopped doing track after my like second and a half or like third year of doing it because I just figured like it wasn't going anywhere. And so I might as well just like go after, but at least I have this improv thing, at least I have this acting thing. So I can pursue that because that actually makes me feel good. Whereas track for the past 5 years has been making me feel bad. So I stopped doing track. I was full on into the acting thing. And so I just decided like, you know what, like I want to, just try to like step out on my own and just like, try to go after this thing that I know I love and that I know I'm passionate about and I know I'm gifted at and I know that people love it when I'm doing it. So, let me just go after it. And thankfully, I was able to stay at a family friend in the guest room of a family friend's place for a few months before saving up enough to like get my own place out here in Vancouver. All that time I was just grinding, man. I was at that theater, man, like damn near every day for hours, for like 3 to 5 hours. I was just in that theater studying up and performing and just trying to get better. I was just in that theater, man. I was at as many I did as many gigs as I could doing improv. Like I was really, really passionate about this thing, like way more passionate about it than I was about track. I worked a lot harder in theater than I did in track. I can definitely say that for sure. Um, and when I say I worked a lot harder, not because of like the physical output that I put out, because I'm assuming that I definitely put up more physical exertion in track, but just the amount of drive, the personal drive that I had to like get better at it. And it was all self motivated. There was no pressure to like, from any coaches to like go to any practices or something like that. It was just me. It was like my own passion, my own drive. And that's why I feel like, those years at track definitely weren't wasted because it just definitely taught me discipline. It taught me the discipline of you got to get up and go every day or almost every day, maybe with a day of rest to like get better at this thing. It's a daily thing. It's a daily thing. It's not something that you can just get better at just by being like naturally gifted or talented at it, which I was. I messed up a thing that I was naturally gifted at by just thinking that I was gonna just get it because I was just good. But like this time around, I was just like had that mindset of like, no, I'm gonna be like disciplined at it. I'm gonna like go after this thing all day, like every day, as much effort as I could possibly put out. And like that's exactly what I did. And part of that journey of putting out as much effort as I could was starting to put out videos on Instagram because my whole idea was like, okay, look, I want to put out videos on Instagram so that I'm more marketable, so that people want to come out to my shows and stuff like that. But what actually ended up happening was that, Instagram and social media content ended up being the thing that I was going to pursue after stepping away from theater, which is what I eventually did. And today, even to this day, it's still a struggle being away from the theater because like I just loved it so much and I still love theater and like I'm never going to be away from the theater. Like I still want to use this platform to eventually get me to go on tours and stuff like that for sure. Like that's definitely a goal of mine. But I had to step away from the theater company that I was with just because like I knew how hard I worked. And me being a competitive dude, I just felt like the next step, from the rookie league was getting up to the main stage, and I felt like I definitely, did everything that I needed to do as far as like skill set was concerned to like be qualified for that position. It definitely didn't look like that was happening. Um, I just decided, you know what, like I have this social media thing going for me. At that time, I probably had like 4,000 followers, nothing near to where it is right now. But I was just like, you know what, this thing is moving, this theater thing isn't. Let me just like pivot a little bit and just like really focus on the social media thing. And yeah, and like that's just sort of the journey that I'm at right now. Not doing theater has like allowed me to like work during the day, which is something I wasn't doing. It was like really, I really stressed myself out at a period to like be a full-time artist and do improv and go out for acting auditions and do social media. So that was a very, very stressful time. But yeah, man, I'm just in the process of like, I'm still figuring everything out. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. And you know, you know. But one thing I do know is like this acting thing and like marketing myself to be, to become an actor is definitely the thing that drives me. It's been driving me, ever since I was a kid, whether I knew it or not. And like that's why I'm doing this podcast, man. Is because you know, um, I'm trying to put myself out there, and that's why I had sort of the frustrating podcast, or the podcast of frustration that I had last week, is because like I'm so passionate about it. I'm so competitive about it. Like I want it really, really bad, and I've been putting my whole soul into it ever since I graduated from university in 2016. April 2016, I believe, is when I graduated. 2017, yeah. But even before that, even before when I was in high school doing, musicals and, putting the word out that we have this cool musical going on. When I was in university, when I was putting up like, like posters and creating Facebook pages and creating YouTube pages and YouTube skip videos and Instagram pages to like get the word out. When I was creating my own like sketch shows and like marketing that and stuff like that, like the theater and the marketing of theater have been like two things that I've always been passionate about. And it's just like really, really cool that I'm at this point now where I get to combine where like social media has allowed me to like literally combine those passions and do both at the same time. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. If there's anything else you like guys would like to know about me personally, like you guys can ask me anything. I'll answer everything like within reason, within everything that's not too private. I'm here, like I'm an open book. So like whatever you guys would want to know about me, any facts, and like whether it's from like my biggest fear or like what my favorite color is, anything along those lines, I'd love to answer those questions for you. Put it in the comments on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on the podcast, on anything. Just hit me up with any questions you have about me personally. I'd love to answer them for you. Yeah, so I guess we can end it there. This has been another episode of Tunji's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Peace out.